Alrighty, welcome back everyone. I wanted to get into a little bit of a recruiting update after we got into some players that just need to have a big couple of weeks as they head into their season this upcoming year. But let's get into recruiting. Let's break down some of the big things happening around recruiting, and there are some big time rumors that we have to get updated for you guys. Definitely some things that you're going to want to keep an eye out on in the recruiting trail over the next little bit. But let's start with some commitments that happened, and Texas got a huge one last night with Khalik Lockett, a 5-star wide receiver. He is committed to Texas, someone that they very much needed to pick up. They had been leading for him for quite some time, and they very much needed to lock this one down, get on the right foot as they enter August, and it could be a huge month for them. They are in for at least 4 or 5 stars this upcoming month, and we'll break them down at the end of the show, or at the end of this segment, excuse me. But this is a guy that they very much need, and they have another wide receiver at the end of this month in Jamie French that they are definitely turning their sights towards now. So a huge pickup for Texas, and one that is absolutely going to make a difference. Maybe his first season as some of the players walk out that they brought in this past year. But let's move over to UCF, and let's talk about Javon Boggs. He was committed to Missouri for quite some time. He is now flipped to UCF. He is from the Florida area, so definitely a huge pickup for this Central Florida team. I think when you look at this UCF team, they are picking up literally everything that they possibly could this cycle. And if they have an 8 or possibly even 9-win season, it could get really dangerous for everyone else in that state and for everyone in the Big Ten, because Gus Malzahn could do some really remarkable things, especially with that team having a huge year this upcoming year. So a huge pickup for them, someone that absolutely will play a part pretty early on, I would have to assume, but definitely one that could just be the beginning for UCF this upcoming cycle. And then you have Carday Smith, a very talented 4-star offensive tackle. He is committed to USC. This is a pickup that they very much needed, because you look at this USC team, it's all about just getting big bodies. It's all about just putting yourself in a position where you get off the bus more confident because you got bigger guys than the other team. And right now, that is not necessarily the case, but when you add someone that's 6'6", 285 at the offensive tackle position, it will pretty quickly. And if they can build him out a little bit more, possibly get up to about maybe 300 there, I think he'll be more than fine. This was a former Auburn commit, so stealing a guy from the state of Alabama from Auburn, never a bad thing by any means. A huge pickup for this team, and definitely a guy that could play a big-time role his first year. And then finally, DJ Sanders, a 4-star defensive lineman out of Belleville, Texas. He is committed to Texas A&M. This was kind of a Texas A&M battle for quite some time. A&M had held the lead for a little bit here, and that's kind of what Texas is facing with a new defensive line coach that you'll probably have to wait until some things are proven this upcoming year to really get some D linemen rolling into that class. But Mike Elko just got a huge pickup in this kid. This is someone that frankly could start right away for A&M next year. Definitely a player that is going to be huge for this team, and I think is as big of a pickup in the state of Texas as really anyone. So a huge pickup there, definitely someone that A&M very much needed, and likely will be a player for them in the future pretty soon here, honestly. And then you have Carson Sneed. He is in the 2026 class, so just wanted to update you on what Tennessee is doing, and it's a lot of really good things. A 6'3", 235 tight end from Nashville, Tennessee, likely was always going to Tennessee, but when you add someone like Faison Brandon, there's going to be talented kids that want to follow him. That's just the reality of this game. It's exactly what happened when Arch Manning signed with Texas. There were so many people that followed him right into that place, like Jonte Cook and DeAndre Moore, so they're definitely going to get some really talented players. It's starting with a very talented tight end in Carson Sneed. So definitely a huge thing for Tennessee, and they just continue to rack up big-time commits in that 2026 class. But let's move on to a couple of big-time intel questions, a couple of scheduled commitments at the end of this. But let's get into the behind the scenes, and there are so many quarterbacks that possibly could be on flip watch over the next little bit. And I want to start with Deuce Knight. He is the Notre Dame commit as of right now. Probably won't be the case too much longer if I had to imagine. Auburn is getting a ton of talk around this kid, and it was something that Auburn's been trying to do this for quite some time. They've been trying to flip a big-time quarterback commit. It started with Julian Lewis, then it moved to KJ Lacey, the Texas commit, for a little bit. Now it has moved to Deuce Knight, and it sounds like they are closing in pretty quickly on him. This is a huge, huge thing for Notre Dame because he was a huge recruiter for Notre Dame. He was there many times over the last little bit, and was definitely a huge piece of them building out this remarkable class that they've been able to. They lose him, there's a possibility that they lose a couple others. So would be a huge hit for this Notre Dame class and this program overall, and would be a huge get for Auburn that just continues to rack in really talented guys. Another quarterback I'm watching very closely is the Texas A&M commit Hussein Longstreet, a very talented kid that just lit up the Elite 11 and made a lot of people know his name very quickly. This is a kid that it sounds like USC is turning up the heat very, very aggressively, and we'll get to why that is here in a second, but definitely would be a huge pickup for them. This is one of those just physically ridiculous kids at quarterback. Definitely someone that if you put him in Lincoln Riley's offense, he could do some really special things at the college football level. So definitely would love to see this guy in pretty much any offense, frankly, because he could do really special things wherever he is. But if he gets with Lincoln Riley over at USC and flips from A&M, it could be a very special thing and could be that next Heisman quarterback for Lincoln Riley. But the reason that they are looking at him so aggressively is Julian Lewis, the guy that we've talked about probably 20 different times as being a flip possibility from USC. It sounds like it's still Colorado. It sounds like it's still that team over in Boulder that's making all of the big-time pushes for that quarterback, and it would be a huge pickup for this team. There's no two ways about that. When you have a guy like Shedeur Sanders walking out the door that is that physically talented, you need to make sure you're replacing him with a kid that is at least close to that physically talented, and this is definitely one of those kids. I think he would start right away, and it would probably be a little bit of a learning curve, but the talent level is off the charts, and we'll see what happens, obviously. He definitely could still go to USC, but it's been trending away from USC for quite some time, and I think Colorado might just reap those benefits. But let's get into a couple of players that are down to just a couple of last schools. Andrew Marsh, a very talented 4-star wide receiver. He's down to 5 schools: USC, Michigan, Colorado, Washington, and Texas. A 6'2", 180 wide receiver out of Katy, Texas. This is one that I think I would lean Michigan right now. Michigan has been ahead for quite some time. It sounds like USC is pushing relatively hard. I'm not sure how much Texas is in this thing. I think they could very well be in this thing by the end, but we'll see what happens with a couple other wide receiver commits around there. And then I think Colorado is absolutely an option here. And Washington is absolutely an option. I think this year will definitely decide that a ton. And if Colorado can flip Julian Lewis, I think that could be a big-time moniker for them and a big-time, feather in their cap in this recruitment. So I definitely think this is a very talented player. I would lean Michigan right now, but there are so many teams nipping at their heels that I wouldn't necessarily feel too confident in that by any means. I think he's committing on August 20th. Yes, August 20th is the commitment there. So definitely one to watch out for there. And then you have a very talented offensive lineman, Nick Brooks, a 4-star offensive tackle. It sounds like he is down to 3 schools: Georgia, Texas, and USC. USC is staying in a lot of these big-time recruitments for players that they very much need. So gives you an idea of what's going on behind the scenes there. But it sounds like it's going to be an August 23rd or August 30th decision for this kid. Nothing is on the books as of right now, so that could change. But he did say he thought he'd be committed by now. So definitely will be one that you'll be on the lookout for the next couple of weeks. It feels like this is a Texas UGA battle. I would lean UGA as of right now, but I think this could change very, very quickly. USC absolutely is trying to change his mind and make sure that he gets on campus. But overall, I think it's Texas UGA as of right now, and we'll see if USC can throw their name into the hat a little bit later in the process and possibly lock this one down. But finally, I want to finish off with Josh Petty. We talked about him the last time we did a recruiting update. Georgia Tech continues to pick up big-time ground here, but it sounds like Florida State is losing ground, and Ohio State is gaining a lot of ground coming into the field. So it might be a Georgia Tech versus Ohio State battle, which frankly usually goes to Ohio State. Let's just be totally honest. But it sounds like Georgia Tech and Brent Key are doing really, really good work here. And if they can bring him in, I think it would be the highest recruit in Georgia Tech history and would give them the best offensive tackle duo by a pretty comfortable margin in the 2025 class, because they just brought in the number 10 offensive tackle in this class. So if they bring in number 2, they'll be more than fine on that front. So a very, very talented kid, one that they absolutely love around Georgia Tech, but they also love him up in Columbus. So definitely will be one to watch and one that will define that class in so many different ways if he does end up at Georgia Tech. But let's get into a couple of players that will be committing over the next little bit. By the end of this month, we'll likely have most of the top 30 guys committed, and we'll likely know roughly where everyone's going to sit. Obviously, there will be some ers and ahs thrown in there throughout the season, but we'll know at least kind of the realm that everyone is going to sit in going into this season. And let's start with the number 3 player in the country, David Sanders, the number 1 offensive tackle in the country. He is committing August 17th at 2:30. It's Ohio State, Nebraska, Tennessee, and Georgia in this one, and there's plenty of different teams that have plenty to say. I think UGA would get my lean as of right this second, but Nebraska is getting closer and closer closer, and I absolutely love them as we get closer to that date. I think Tennessee's pushing really hard. Ohio State's right in there as well. So this might be one of the more unpredictable ones as we get closer, but definitely will be a huge pickup for whatever team gets him. The number 7 player in the country, Jonah Williams, a safety that is going to be hugely talented, is also very talented on the baseball diamond, but he's going to commit on August 24th at 1 p.m. This is one that it's Texas, Texas A&M, and OU. It is the 3 teams that hate each other more than you could possibly imagine, battling over this recruitment, and baseball is going to play a factor here. Obviously, all 3 of these programs have relatively good baseball programs. Texas and Texas A&M tend to be a little bit ahead of Oklahoma, at least history-wise, and what they're sitting right now, so definitely will be one to talk about as we get a little bit closer, but it sounds like there's a ton of buzz around Texas. I would lean A&M as of right this second. Maybe OU can make some noise, but overall, I think it's going to be one of those that goes down to the absolute wire. Then the number 14 player in the country, Josh Petty, we talked about him. He will be committing this Saturday, I believe, at noon, so definitely one to watch there. We will definitely be on the lookout for that. Actually, next Monday. Apologies there, but a very talented kid nonetheless. Definitely one to watch. The number 25 player in the country, Jamie French, a really, really talented receiver. August 30th at 2 p.m. is when he'll make his announcement. It sounds like it's all Texas at the moment. Now, Miami is doing everything they possibly can to flip this kid. So definitely one to watch. This is a Florida kid, so definitely one that Miami could possibly pull off. And if they can, that would be a huge pull for them. And Texas would be left a little bit reeling. But as of right now, I'd lean towards Texas. Definitely could change as we get a little bit closer. But the number 27 player in the country as well will be committing this month, Michael Fasusi, a very talented offensive tackle. August 21st at 6 p.m. is when he will make his choice, and it sounds like Oklahoma is doing really, really good work here. This was kind of an A&M Texas battle for quite some time, and then Oklahoma came in and really might have launched themselves up to the very top of this recruitment. So as of right now, I'd probably lean towards Oklahoma. I think a ton of stuff can change over the next little bit, and this is one of those recruitments that is going to be a little bit all over the place, but whoever gets him is getting a big-time offensive tackle that could play pretty much right away at any of these schools. So definitely will be something to watch there. And then you add in 5 stars, Elijah Griffin, Andrew Babalola. I think Michael Terry is going to commit this month. So there are so many different guys across the country, especially 5 stars, that will be committing over the next couple of weeks into the next month, and it's going to be a really fun one. It's going to find this cycle in a lot of different ways, so we'll obviously break it down as this stuff starts to unfold and the craziness begins. But let's take our last break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some conference questions, get into the ACC today. We've done the Big Ten and the SEC already, so ACC's turn this time around. We'll break down some of the big questions I have around that conference right after this, so stick with us.